Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Communications and Conversations. I'm your host, John Crook. Thanks for tuning in. Did not have a show last week. Just going to say we did not have a show last week. No worries. You didn't miss anything. You didn't miss the notifications or whatever. We didn't have one because, it was Easter weekend, and we had some family things to do around the old Communications and Conversations ranch here. And we kind of went along and said, you know what, we're just not going to have time for a show this weekend. And it happens, right? We're only human, right? And sometimes you got to do family things, and sometimes family things is fun things, and blah, 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 and all that jazz. So we did not have a show last week, but we are back here today. And we are back with a little bit of an interesting type of show. And if you're in radios, if you're in electronics, if you're in anything, and in this day and age, this is an important one that we're going to talk about here. It can really impact your usage of radios and stuff. You could be like, man, this radio really sucks for some reason. Well, you'll find out why we're going to talk about today. So it's basically interference from unlikely items. That's what it is. Interference from unlikely items. So that's today's topic of communications and the conversations today. So with that, before we jump in, we want to go ahead and first of all say thank you to our sponsor, JJK Communications. JJK Communications has all of your needs for communications. They are your connection to quality communications. JJK Communications offers a variety of consulting, support, solutions, sales, service, you name it, to help out with your needs on there. That's right. You can always count on, you can always rely on JJK Communications to meet your needs, okay? A lot of other companies, a lot of other places are going to offer you products and sell things on stuff like this and being like, oh, well, you need this and you need this, where you really don't need this. Or worse, some of these places which are going to offer rapid solutions or nationwide solutions are going to go ahead and be saying, you know what, you need this, and this is going to work for you, where really, you know what, it's not going to. Sometimes there is an association between what the cost of something is versus the quality or reliability of it. And also, too, is that all that is expensive is not always that good. So that's where JJK Communications, our sponsor, actually can help you out today. Contact them. They offer their JJK Elite. That's right, their JJK Elite push-to-talk nationwide service. Now, why do they call it Elite? Because this is a service that is designed and tested for people prior to being given out to customers. They didn't go ahead and saying, well, we can get this, we could do this, and let's market this. No, they went along and they've tested it out. They know that it works in the way that it describes. And if you, as a customer, wanted me of JJK Communications saying, hey, does this work the way that it should, or I want it to work this way? They can tell you yes, no, or you know what? We'll test it out for you. That's the service that you need. That's the service you want. Don't buy boxes. Don't have them give you boxes because you gave them money and then you got to put it together and hope that it works for you. Communications is a time-saving thing that can help people in numerous ways. And we're not just talking actual businesses either. No, communications is well beyond that. You have family needs, your family needs to communicate, JJK Communications can help with that. Your business needs to communicate, JJK Communications can help with that. Family, outdoor activities, clubs, groups, organizations, JJK Communications can help with that. Check them out today. Head on over to their website, www.jjkcom.com. Once again, that's www.jjkcom.com. All righty. So today's show is an interesting one. I did some video. Well, let me back up here. So obviously anybody that is in communications needs to have all their stuff, right? They want to have their toys and everything built into their vehicles. They want to mount radios in there. They want to do this. You want to have electronics. You want to have things going on. And guess what? At times, I'm going to be straight up honest with you, there's a lot of stuff that you put in there that isn't really tested or designed to work with a lot of the stuff that it's also in there with. And then you got problems. And I sort of, to a degree, ran into this issue here. And it was a stumper. and it was a stumper. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory on this here. So I was doing some help with some friends with JJK Communications, and doing some stuff on there with the local amateur radio group. And we went along and we put a new repeater on the air. Well, let me back it up. It's the same frequency, but we went along and moved the repeater to a different location, and we put in a new repeater for it. So, yeah, it is kind of a new repeater, new location, new physical equipment, same frequency, all that kind of jazz. Now, what we had running into it here in this situation is that we were testing it out, and I wanted to do the logical test. And that logical test was, what I want to do is I want to be able to see how what I would call an impaired user would have it, right? I want to see how it's going to work with someone using a handheld in their car. I wanted to see how it was going to work with someone having a HT, for example, with an antenna on top of the car, like a little magnet mount tiny antenna. And I'm not talking like a big magnet mount. I'm talking like one of those like cheapy, like little like antennas that when the wind's blowing kind of does one of these things when you're only going like 5 miles per hour. I wanted to test that because I think that's a good testament to find out of your equipment, of your system, right? We can all put mobiles. We could all put, 50-watt mobiles and high gain antennas on there, and then this thing's going to play great. But that's, I don't know, that's a little misleading. And also, too, is we do the coverage maps, we do the coverage studies, and we can say it's going to work like this. But then when it doesn't work like this and it works like this, then we have, well, what's the deal? And I know coverage maps are, street level, can factor in other interference, blah, 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 blah. So that's why I thought, okay, this would be really good. So I got the old handy dandy trusty handheld radio, and I'm going along doing my thing, testing on there. And I noticed that with the handheld radio, like, I'm having issues receiving it. And I was like, no, something's up. And I'm like, I tested the duplexer. The duplexer was good. I have maybe, we had, because of our installation, we had maybe 6 watts loss, maybe 10 watts loss. Yeah, about that. I don't know. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head here. But it was marginal, right? So there were some things in there that just didn't seem right. Like the installation was good, everything was good. We should have had better performance, and I was just like, why is my, right? So I'm like, this is weird. This is really weird. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's just bad. Maybe it is just crappy handheld coverage in my truck. So I kind of just chucked it off to that. So I'm going in the day after. So at this time I got a mobile radio in there. Well, I have the FTX one. That's where. Well, okay, let's back up. I had another mobile radio in there. And that time I was like, okay, well, I'll have it at 25 watts, and I had an unity and gain antenna on there. Of course, it's omnidirectional. No, I got a beam on the truck. But I was like, okay, should be better. And I noticed, wow, even that had like a poor receive on it. And I was like, okay, let me just note it. So then the weekly net comes around, and I hop on the weekly net, and I'm talking to my handheld from home. No, I'm not in the truck. I'm not in everything. And for the most part, they were hearing me pretty good. The antenna got changed a little bit of being, omnidirectional at the top. It's sort of faced to the northwest, and where I'm located from the tower, maybe I'm a little shadowed by the tower. Whatever, right? Whatever. But I can hit it with the handheld, and it's doing pretty good. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute here. Now, if I could hit it from the handheld in the house, why the heck can't I hit it from inside my truck, like maybe 2 miles, maybe 3 miles away? But now I'm like, in essence, like 9 air miles away outside at street level. Yeah, this isn't adding up. So then I went along and I was doing some other things. And then I put the FTX1 in the truck. Now, I make a statement that it's the FTX1 because it's because of the display that I saw here, which really was like, oh, this is the issue. So we're going to cut over to some video here that I recorded. Sorry, it's a little choppy. I was handheld recording it on my device, whatever, right? I didn't have the time to set up a studio in the truck to do this. So, and I'm holding it while I'm holding my phone, recording it while I'm going ahead and talking and doing things. So sorry, the video's a little choppy here, but without further ado, let's go over to the clips and you're going to see what today's episode is all about. Alrighty, so here's where the interesting thing happened. So I got my radio here. I got my FTX1, right? And I got stuff mounted in the car, so I got a scanner in the background there. Okay, Whistler scanner. Like it. Perfect. Okay. Anyways, so I have my FTX1 here, and I got some things temporarily wired in, right? Up to the cigarette lighter there. Not a big deal, not a worry, right? But as kind of what today's part of the show is, I want you to notice as my finger kind of shows up, but look at the noise floor on there. Nothing, right? Well, that all was going to change when I decided to change from this 2-prong outlet to the 3-prong. And the 3-prong I have is this one right here. It's a standard one that I bought. Supposed to be a good one. Okay, has a USB right there for it, okay? And then I have this part right in here. And let me show you what happened once I changed this out. All right, so I'm not doing any voodoo magic here or anything, but if you notice that the floor went high, like there was nothing on the floor before, but now this noise floor came up out of somewhere. So I was kind of wondering what was going on. Now, I never thought about what I changed, right? I went along, I had the 2-pronger here, right? 2-prong right here. Swapped that out for this 3-prong. Never thought anything further of it. But then I noticed, like, I'm having a real hard time receiving anything on the scanner here. And then I'm having a hard time receiving anything on here. But in particular on VHF. We go to UHF here real quick. Nothing. The noise floor ain't there at all. I mean, I'll even turn on the amp here. And even with the amp on, there's nothing there, right? But I go back over to VHF. It's there, and it's horrible. And it was like almost not even knocking out the public safety stuff here. Like, it sounded really bad. So I was like, what happened? What did I change? Now, really kind of running off of what I have here right now is I have this power cable for this here. So I'm like thinking, okay, well, let's swap out the power cable. So I went along and I was like, okay, well, I even went and I'm like, okay, now there's nothing on there. So I have no power cable in there whatsoever. It's strictly 100% on the battery. And as you can see, the noise floor was still there. Well, what I did was I wired up some other things on here too. I was wiring up my dash cam, and my dash cam's up there. But I was like, okay, well, I temporarily hooked it up because I didn't have a chance to run the wirings from up there. But still, like, the noise floor was there. So I went along and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect it. So I disconnected this. So there's nothing in there. Nothing in there whatsoever right now. And all of a sudden, the noise floor started to go away. I'm like, oh, okay. All righty. Well, something here. Like, son of a gun. But let me show you what else I did. Give me a moment here to correct it. Okay, so I made the change. And it's hard to do with the two hands, kind of recreating it all. But if you look at it, I just plugged this right in. Okay, so now this is the cable going off there. So this draws like maybe 1 or 2 amps. This cord here for it, I mean, it doesn't draw that much there. But I looked at it like, whoa, wait a minute here. The noise floor, it's gone still. But I have that plugged in. But earlier, I unplugged this from the 3-pronger here. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Once I unplugged that, that happened here. So I was like, wait a minute, something's going on. So I said, wait a minute. I already know that the 2-pronger didn't cause this issue, but the 3-pronger did. So then I decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and try something else. Let me show you what I did next. Okay, so what I did is I plugged the 3-pronger back in. Nothing's connected to it. And I got this noise floor. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll move the phone all the way there for you. so like, okay, well, let me go and let me plug here. I'm going to try to do it with one hand. Let me go and plug it in and watch what happens when I plug it in. Boom. It comes back right away. But when I unplug it, you can hear the camera kind of back around. I'm going to unplug it here. Ready? And I unplugged it. And boom, it went away. But I was like, wait a minute. I plugged this in directly into there and nothing happened. But now I plug this in there and nothing happens. But then, so what's going on? And all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I wonder if it's a draw. So here I am going to take my USB. I'm going to plug the USB in there. Well, I had a 50-50 chance. So now it's just plugged in there. And look what happened when I plugged it in and it caused a draw. Whoa, that noise floor came back. So now what I'm going to do, and you notice there's still speckles on there. All right, so now I'm going to unplug the, see, anytime I'm touching it. So now I'm like, wait a minute. So I unplugged this. This is something brand new in there. So now what I did is I'm going to plug this end into my other phone here. And so I'm trying to do this all one-handedly, by the way, while I'm trying to record. So sorry if the camera's jumping around a little bit. So now I have this phone plugged into this cord here, and now I'm going to plug in the cord up top here. So I'm going to keep this here. I'm going to take this here. Whoop, I don't see my neighbors. So now that's plugged in. Now that's charging. Whoa. It's all back. So knowing that, wait a minute, anytime I'm plugging something into this here, whether it's here or here, the noise floor gets horrible. Like it's throwing out this widespread interference. But watch what happens when I unplug it. Boom, instantly right away, it goes bye-bye. Look at that, it's going by. It's going by. And it's widespread too. It's not like a single spike on there. So that's why we're talking about what we are today and saying, hey, look at this. That's a 3-pronger. Supposed to be a good one. I'm not going to say who, okay, because I don't want to do that. Not going to say who, but this is supposed to be a commercial, good 3-pronger one. USB on there. But now I'm going to go back just to cover my butt. Plug that in there. And then I'm going to plug this in here. Ready? Plug it in. You'll hear my camera start up in a moment. And okay, there's like maybe a little tiny bit of interference here or there, but very minuscule whatsoever. It's this thing. Look at that. It's this thing. And that's like tracking a weird thing down because guess what? Unless it's plugged in and being used, and I'm looking at something that could show a graph on there, guess what? There's interference in there. Okay, so the video shows what was something that, like I said, I never crossed my mind. So I did this. So I recreated it, obviously, here. But I then went along and I did that test again with the handheld, then with the handheld antenna, and then with the mobile and everything. And guess what, folks? The repeater coverage is great. The repeater coverage is great. Like, I'm getting miles away with the handheld in my truck talking on it now because that noise floor is gone. Now, when did I change it? So I changed the prongs outlet here. So, mind you, like I said, I recorded this to do a reenactment, okay? But it kind of went through the steps that I was trying to figure out here, why I was having such a hard time. But I switched it to about maybe a while before we actually did the testing on there. And I always thought, like, because our public safety here right now currently is VHF, analog and digital. And digital, of course, always sounds fine. It sounded great. Had no issues with there. But the analog would always have like a little bit of a in the background. And I'm like, okay, I'm near the simulcast tower. I know where it's at. Why am I having such a hard time receiving it? So, and I chucked it up to the scanner. I chucked it up to, antenna placement, I don't know. I really fooled myself. I really said, okay, there's something there, but there's nothing I can do about it. And then what happens here? I turn around and find out that I bit myself in the butt on here because of purchasing this object. Okay, this 3-prong outlet. Now, the reason I went from a 2-prong to 3-prong was because, believe it or not, I actually do have car chargers that are cigarette lighter plugs. But if you need to plug in like a scanner, like some sort of peripheral device that's still a cigarette lighter plug, because all my outlets, yes, I do have USB-A and USB-C outlets on my vehicle. People are like, well, don't you get those on your vehicle, John? Yeah, I do, but they're like, if you're trying to charge a phone, there's very few outlets that are charge only. The rest of them are all Android Auto or Apple Auto or iAuto or whatever the hell they call it. And I'm just like, I just want to charge something. Plus, also too, is I can get a faster charge out of a 12-volt DC outlet than I can out of just that USB drive or USB-A or C plug outlet thing on there. So that's why I wanted one of these, okay? And then also too, is I can plug in my modem that I have and what have you. So there have been a few times where I'm like, and believe it or not, this vehicle only has one cigarette lighter outlet right there. That's it. That's the cigarette lighter plug. That's it. There's nowhere else. There's 2 AC outlets in the vehicle. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 or 12 like USB outlets in there, but like one cigarette lighter outlet. I'm like, good God. Right. But anyways, so that's why I wanted a 3-prong. And plus also too is like, well, sometimes you just want to plug in the USB. You know, I used to take that one with me traveling, or was looking at taking that one with me traveling, I should say. Because then I don't have to have an adapter. If it has a cigarette lighter plug, I could just plug the USB into that and didn't need it. Well, this is not the case. Now, I am one that has been burnt in the past. I've had someone that went and bought one of those cigarette lighter outlet adapters. You plug into a cigarette lighter outlet. It's got the USB ports on there. I had someone buy one time, and they were using it in a vehicle, using it in my vehicle. And the same thing pretty much happened. What's happening today, that noise floor just went whoa like that. And I don't know if it's a bad design. I don't know if it's just the USB thing. Well, it can't just be the USB thing because it happened when we were using the cigarette lighter outlet plug, the female receptacle, as well as the USB outlet. So it's something in there. And I don't know if it's the board, if it's the circuit or whatever. What I can tell you 100% for sure now, that thing's going into the trash. Well, actually, I'm going to do one of those cool things. I'm actually going to cut off all the female receptacle plugs. I'm going to put some Anderson power poles on there, and then I can use that on my power supplies in here, plug it in real quick like that kind of thing. But nevertheless, there's something wrong with it. And like I said, I'm not going to name the name of who made it. I'm not going to say anything like that on there. I don't know if it's just one bad plug. I don't want to say, well, Acme charging ports went along and they have crap product. Well, if it's one thing, that's not fair, right? That's not cool, man. That's not cool. So I'm not going to name anything that on there, but it does add to what we were talking about today. You got to be careful. You got to see what is going on in your car. I would always say don't buy the crap at the register of like the Quick Trip gas station there or the Dollar General or something like that. Because no offense, some of that stuff is Chinese products. Some of that stuff is bad. Okay, it is, but not this case. Not this case. This This isn't an Amazon. I never shop Temu, and I don't really do Amazon on my own. My wife usually does that for me. But this isn't like I walked into a Walmart, I walked into a Target, or I went to a Best Buy or something like that on there. I didn't get the cheap one. I researched it out and I got it, and this is there. Now, where I bought it, I talked to a few people there who are sort of radio nerds, geeks. I don't know. I hate to use those certain terms, but they happen to work there. And I said, hey, FYI, when I found this out, when I was going to do the video on it, I'm like, hey, FYI, if anybody says any issues or stuff like that, do it. And they said they were going to actually test one. I don't know if they're going to come back to me. If they are watching, hey, let me know what happened there. It would be a really good one. But it does should cause some thought process in your mind. Because if this thing was doing it, right? If, we don't know what caused it. Could it be that little circuit board or the step-down circuitry? Could it be a capacitor going bad in there? Could it be this is, whatever it was. But if you noticed, it was weird that it was on VHF only, and the UHF side wasn't impacted. Now, did I test the HF side since I had a capability of HF radio? No, I did not. Why? To be honest with you, it slipped my mind because really in the truck, I do, yes, you see with the radio, I could do HF mobile, but I don't. I really don't. I do VHF, UHF, of course. But I could think back that this problem started right away because if you noticed in the video, right near the cigarette lighter, I have one of those pan of ice mounts. I forgot which one that is. Not on the top by the cigarette lighter plug, but along the side, the no-holes drilled mount. I can't think of the name of it is on there. Pro Clip, I think it is. Pro Clip. They're out of Wisconsin here, at least I know. They make great mounts on there. That's in there, and I would take my public safety radio and clip it on there, so then that way it's not in the center console. And if I'm listening to something that I don't have my scanner either A on or B programmed into my scanner, or like if I'm listening to one of the encrypted channels, I can have that radio there listening to it, and it's got a better antenna on there. And I noticed that had issues too. But once again, you don't put these things together, right? Your radio sounds a little broken up. Handheld. Well, I'm driving down the road with the handheld in the car, no external antenna. Of course, I'm going to have issues receiving. So think about it this way. Now, let's get into the semantics of it. People are like, well, John, they're supposed to be tested and parted, with the FCC to prevent interference and stuff like that and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, correct. It's supposed to not cause any interference. That's part 15 there in a nutshell. Okay. So, is this a bad product? I don't know. I'm not here to talk about the product. I'm not going to give my opinion on that. Was there a problem? Yes, there was. But once again, I don't know if this is a natural hereditary born problem with it, or if this was just, once again, an isolated incident with this one run of this product line there. But what it really caused me to do is it caused me to go through all my vehicles and to then, and I use this, but this is a great thing for like SDR receivers. So you got the little SDR receivers on there, like you can hook up to your computer. I forgot who makes the other receivers and stuff like that. Hey, do those kind of things. Take it there, sweep through whole area, check it out. I have in the past, and this is the funny part. Like I said, I had that cigarette lighter to USB adapter prior to this that was causing an issue. But then also, too, as I remember back in my previous life, as I joked around, I was working on a squad car, and the squad car was having a hell of a time with connecting to the digital radio trunk system. And it was like really, really weird. And I was like, okay, when I ran the test, I tested the radio and this and this and this and this, and no problem. But I was never starting the vehicle. And then one time I started the vehicle and I started to notice these spikes. Like that's when I could actually see in some cases that the signal strength on the trunk system went from like 5 bars down to like 3 bars in one case. And I'm like, whoa, what is causing that? And I looked everywhere. I put power line filtering on there thinking when the vehicle's running, that's what's causing this issue. I choked the antenna. They had a mobile repeater in their same band, mobile repeater. I'm thinking, is that thing causing the issue? There and there and there and there. And then at one point in time, I'll never forget, it was dumb luck that I stumbled upon it. I went along, my phone was starting to die, and the deputy went along and he had an iPhone. So he had an iPhone cord in there. I unplugged the iPhone cord, plugged in my cord, and then I went to start thinking and checking again, and all of a sudden I noticed that the signal strength came back on the system and blah, 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 blah. Well, what ended up happening was that he bought one of those gas station iPhone power cords, and it was one of those things where he bought it because he needed it one time. But that's fine, whatever, who cares? And then when he bought it and needed it, guess what? It had issues, it had problems, and he would use it obviously to charge his iPhone, and that when he'd have it the vehicle turned on, power going to the cord, it caused the interference, and it was enough of a large band interference that it would knock out some of the control channels on there or have a hard time for it receiving control channels. Once again, I remember spent hours on there. And when I told them what it was, like, no offense, some deputies, let's face it, some people in law enforcement don't understand radios, right? And of course, it's like, oh, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I said, don't use the cord, believe me or not. And then of course he goes to the sheriff and he's like, well, he's saying it's this card. And the sheriff's like, well, yeah, John, I don't think that, I kind of question what's going on, how a cord could cause the issue. John, I don't know. We got to work together. And I was like, listen, do your job. You arrest criminals. You have me fix the radios. And I went then and I said, fine, go ahead. Have him not use the cord for 2 shifts, okay? 2 whole shifts. See if he's got any issues. And I said, and then the last 2, because they would like to work the 4 on, 4 off kind of thing. And I said, the last 2, let him use the cord. See what the hell happens. Because by then I was getting tired of it because, once again, it's like, you don't know your stuff, whatever. Anyways, sure enough, 2 shifts work fine. 3rd shift, he starts using his cord again. Everything goes to crap in a handbasket. It's like, well, John, you didn't quite fix the issue here. And it's officer safety. And I said, then don't have him use the damn cord. And then he's like, well, I don't think you used the cord. And sure enough, I went and found out that the deputy used the cord. He's like, oh, I said I could use it the 3rd day. I said, get rid of the cord. Don't use the cord for a whole week. Don't use the whole cord for a whole week. Or better yet, I said, who else has and then I even said this, I said, who else has an iPhone that we know? And then they went along and they said, well, such and such has an iPhone. And I said, okay, let them borrow your cord. And I got there and we were in like the sheriff's office. I says, okay, Deputy A, you have this issue. It's your cord. You won't believe that. Okay, Deputy B, do you have issues with yours? No, my radios work fine. Okay, do you have an iPhone? Yes. A and B, you have iPhones. Yeah. Okay, can you switch cords? Switch cords. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I said, Deputy B, give your car cord to Deputy A. Deputy A, give your car cord to Deputy B. Deputy B, you 100% have no issues with your radio in your car receiving the system. Nope. Okay. Deputy A is saying yes. B, you're saying no. No, I'm sorry. B, you have no issues. No. Okay. B, you use A's cord, 1 rotation, even use it 1 shift. And if you find you're having trouble, don't use the cord anymore. Well, I'll be darned. What happened? Well, the sheriff wasn't right because guess what? It turned out that cord was the problem. The minute the cord moved from A to B, B started having issues. A had no issues. But once again, what do I know, right? What do I know? They went to law enforcement school. They go ahead and catch criminals, but instantly when there's a radio issue, they are there. That's another episode, and I'm going to have to go take a blood pressure pill about it. But you know what? That kind of leads into, I should have done this earlier. You know what really bends my antenna? All right, you know what really bends my antenna on there is just that fact. We buy cheap stuff. And I know it's a convenience. I know it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, yeah, I needed it. I had to get it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, I understand that. But you got to use some sort of thing on there. There is a correlation between why something at a gas station counter is $1.99, but if you go to some place that's a brand name piece of equipment, the same thing is $7.99 or $8.99. I get it. I've been there like, this cable's like $25 and there's a place over here that says it for $10. What the hell? Why am I paying $15 more? Well, because there's a purpose. There's a purpose. Alrighty. No, I'm not saying that you go out and buy quote unquote cables that are like $100 where something for $20 will do it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there is sometimes you got to kind of do your little bit of a research on there. And the biggest thing I tell people is, I tell my family this, I tell friends and stuff that aren't versed in radio stuff. I said, listen, here's the deal. When you're going to buy this, do some research, find out some stuff, but use brand name stuff. You buy anything on Temu, double dumbassing you, okay? Because you probably are asking for a world of hurt. If you're buying things on Amazon, that's a crapshoot, okay? Be perfectly honest with you. eBay, same kind of thing. But if you go to certain places, if you're looking for certain accessories and stuff, yes, there is Best Buys. There are, if you're in the radio world, there are the ham radio outlets, for an example, that sell some of these types of accessories and stuff like that on there. They're not going to go ahead and sell you the crap. You're buying that kind of thing. But even if you're not, even if you're like, hey, I don't have any of this stuff near me, I got a Walmart and I got a Dollar General. Okay, buy the stuff, but hold your receipt. Hold your receipt. Test it out. Run it through the motions for a couple days. That stuff ain't working right or it's causing problems. See if the problems were before you bought the stuff and injected into that X factor, or see if you remove that X factor, the stuff you just bought, if it goes away. That's the case, return it. Return it, because it can cause more havoc on you. I've even been in some radio tower sites that, hey, they even specified the types of power supplies you can use in there. And if you're going to use if I have a Wi-Fi router, for an example, for internet routing or connectivity or something like that, they even have specifications on there because they know that if you use the wrong thing, you can throw out a huge amount of baseband interference or noise floor, and then it could do it. I mean, look at the video today. Case in point, stuff is unplugged. UHF isn't a problem. And I don't use UHF that much, but the stuff that I was listening to UHF, now that I think back once I discovered all this, I'm like, yeah, there wasn't a problem with it at all. Well, because it wasn't affecting UHF. But anyways, be careful what you buy. Don't be afraid to return it. And don't buy crap. That's the problem. Crap, really, in this case. Or in this case, it wasn't crap, actually. It wasn't there. So that's what really is this week, what really bends my antenna. Alrighty, well, the clock on the wall, we're over 30 minutes. We got to try to not always make these shows 30 minutes, over 30 minutes. I kind of want to keep it to there unless it's something really interesting or whatever. So thanks for tuning in. I hope it was a good episode for you and something that can put a little thought into there, because I'll tell you what, it went along and made me pull my hair out. And as you see, I don't really have that much. So I started pulling my eyebrows here. I tweezed my own eyebrows. Haha. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much. Take care of sponsors, JJK Communications. And until next week or next time, take care, everybody. And you know what? I'll talk to you on the radio sometime.